Today on the I Guess I'm a Hobbit Says podcast, I'm going to be discussing how YouTube has changed over the last 10 years, why I don't attend podcasting conferences, how you can really easily EQ match microphones, and other stuff too, so go ahead and stick around. Let's start with the discussion about how YouTube has changed over the last 10 years. And the reason that I want to discuss this is, if you're not aware, Susan Wojicki passed away on the 9th of August, 2024. And Susan Wojicki was the CEO of YouTube from 2014 through 2023. I understand she did implement some policies that were very unpopular, but overall, I think the platform has stayed great for a lot longer than any other platform online. It is very rare for any website to get extremely popular and stay relevant for more than 10 years, it seems. Think about Friendster, LiveJournal, MySpace, Facebook, TikTok, all those blogging sites, Tumblr. They all seem to come and go. Instagram may be the closest competition or closest comparison there. But overall, I think she was a fantastic steward for YouTube, and YouTube is ultimately better off than it was in the early days. That is, of course, arguable, and I have been on YouTube since October 2005, I think. And before monetization came to YouTube, it was a completely different place. It was just people uploading because they wanted to, because it was fun, because they had something they needed or wanted to share. And as monetization has become more and more of a thing, as more and more people realize you can earn money on YouTube, it has become much more sterile, much more corporate. And that can be viewed as a hugely negative thing, but the fact that it's still around is amazing. And I understand people disliked a lot of her policies, but following Susan passing away, I saw some really gross posts about her online, kind of taunting, mocking, and it was just a huge bummer to see that, because I think overall she did do a really great job as CEO of the platform. So let's discuss what has changed, or what did change, from 2014 through 2023. We'll start in 2015, and the first feature that I want to discuss is YouTube Red. This is what later turned into YouTube Premium. And as a consumer of YouTube, as somebody who watches too much YouTube, this is my all-time favorite feature because it saves me so much time. YouTubers get a lot of hate because they will put dozens of ads on their video every couple of minutes. Watch an ad. With YouTube Premium, you don't have to worry about that. You don't see a single ad. I have not seen a single ad on YouTube since 2015, and it's beautiful. It is one of my all-time favorite features as a consumer of YouTube. As a YouTuber, as somebody who makes videos on YouTube, another incredibly important feature launched: the ability to publish videos at a scheduled time. This may seem like it has always been there. It has not. Before this, you would just need to have a video set to private, and when you want it to go live, go into the back end and mark it as public. I use this for every single video. Without this, I would actually have to log into YouTube Creator Studio when I want a video to go live and mark it as live. Fast forward a couple of years to 2017, they launched YouTube TV. I use this for a little bit, but I don't care about cable. I don't care about any of that. But if you do, this has pretty much unlimited recording of shows, if I remember correctly. But it has progressively gotten more and more expensive, so not the biggest deal for me. Going forward another year to 2018, community posts were launched. This is another feature that I use regularly. If I'm missing an episode, if I have a question to ask, if I want to get a feel for what people are looking for, I will use the community tab. It is incredibly useful. I don't have to drive people over to Twitter or X or Facebook or join a mailing list. I can just communicate with people on the platform they already follow me on. This did expand to more channels on 2021. Premieres were also launched in 2018. Not the biggest deal for me because I don't use them, but that allows you to publish a video at a certain time, and instead of it just going live, it kind of functions like a live stream. It will play it at an exact time. If somebody joins halfway through, they're watching the video halfway through. But most importantly, you have the live chat. People can send you money. They can do the super thanks thing. That is all good, great, grand. Nothing that I use. I completely forgot to mention that they rolled out super thanks for videos. I don't remember the year they did that. I think that was 2020, 2021. We'll talk about that. Another feature they launched in 2018, huge here, memberships. Prior to this, if you wanted to have some kind of monthly recurring revenue from people, you would have to set up a Patreon. YouTube rolled this out in response to Patreon, and now people can subscribe to you directly on YouTube. Huge benefit for YouTubers if you are not concerned about being banned. If you are a contentious YouTuber, if you cover controversial topics, maybe don't do this because putting all your eggs in one basket is very risky. Diversify your income streams, but if you are just a milquetoast middle of the road, here's a microphone review. This is great because it's exactly where your audience is, makes it easy for them. So that's another great feature. In 2019, they killed annotations and they removed the real-time subscriber count. So they changed it from actual real-time subscribers to just an abbreviation. So instead of 1,162, it would say 1.1K. Instead of 1,368,292, they would say 1.3 million. They did this because they wanted to stop people being harassed over this, I guess, if I'm remembering correctly. People would have these unsubscribe party kind of things. Oh, this content creator sucks. Everybody go unsubscribe. And then you would have channels that existed to do nothing but live stream the actual live subscriber count of multiple channels. Oh, who's losing the most subscribers? Oh, who's gaining the most? And that was the entire existence of these channels. So YouTube killed that off and they just abbreviated it. People were pretty pissed about that. I haven't heard anybody complaining for years. Going forward to 2020, another one of my all-time favorite features, chapter markers were added. Yahoo! If you're watching this on YouTube and not just listening to the podcast, at the bottom, it will have actual chapter markers for each different topic. I had been doing this by adding timestamps for years, and they just rolled this out, and all of my existing videos had the correct information. I absolutely love this because it helps the viewer, it saves the viewer time. If a YouTuber puts chapter markers and timestamps, that shows the YouTuber respects the audience's time. And if somebody can come to a video, get the information they want, and go on about their day, that is a win in my opinion. We should not be trying to trick people into watching just that one more minute. Oh, my watch time got that much better. So chapter markers, as a YouTuber, I love them because I've been doing them since 2017. As a viewer, I love them because it will save me time if I'm going to a video to watch just one thing. Also, in 2020, one of my least favorite things about YouTube Shorts were launched. That may have been when a lot of people start thinking, oh yeah, that's when YouTube changed and the downfall began. To 2021, another really great policy change. The public dislike count was removed. This is another thing they did under the guise or for the justified reason. The reason they gave to justify it was to stop harassment. I'm sad that I can't go to the White House YouTube channel and see 10,000 dislikes, 50 upvotes. I missed that. That brought me joy. So this is a huge bummer, and that is something that changed that I still hear people super angry about. So that is a policy update that was terrible, that people are still unhappy about. And then from 2022 to 2024, this has been in the process of being tested and rolled out. Thumbnail A/B testing, it just finally rolled out to everybody, but this has been in development for years. And that's the last update that I wanted to share. I think a lot of these features are ultimately good things. I think they have improved YouTube, and not just from the YouTuber side of things, from the consumer of YouTube side of things, the YouTube viewer side of things. I think these are great. They have made for a better viewing experience, and they have also made for a better creator experience. But let's focus on the main thing that I think Susan gets hate for, the adpocalypse. Following the adpocalypse, which occurred in 2017, that's when a number of news agencies went around YouTube, found some ads on disgusting videos, and then started emailing advertisers saying, your ads on this video, your ads on this video. Hey, why do you support this? Your ads on this video. And then that created a bunch of outrage amongst advertisers. They started pulling their money off of YouTube ads. And then Susan and the entire YouTube team had to make concessions and get a lot stricter about monetization and a lot stricter about moderation. And I think that's where the majority of dislike for her tenure really stems from. Because following that, we saw a lot of edgy YouTubers, a lot of political channels. They lost monetization, so they lost their income stream. We also started to see those types of videos do worse in the algorithm because YouTube's not making money. They're not going to recommend them as much, or at least that's the theory behind them. We saw some shadow banning. People saying, hey, my videos just don't get recommended anymore, which is very likely, very possible. So that is another reason people got upset. And there are some political channels that were completely deleted, like Alex Jones, like InfoWars, just completely erased off YouTube, which is another thing where people are justifiably very angry. So I think there are reasons to be angry, but I think it is an impossible position for the CEO of YouTube, because they are not just making policy for 10 creators, 100 creators, 1,000 or 1,000,000. They are making policy that impact billions of people. Not just the people who make YouTube videos, but the people who watch YouTube. That's an impossible job. I don't understand how anybody could do that, especially while juggling how do we keep the people making videos happy? How do we keep the people watching videos happy? And then most importantly to them, how do we keep the people giving us money happy? Because that is the big item. Without that, the website just disappears. So I know that certain things were handled poorly. Certain things had a huge negative impact on a lot of people. It was an impossible job. And frankly, I'm glad YouTube is still around. I love this platform. I know I get mocked a lot. Oh, you're too easy on YouTube. You love it too much. You're giving them too much credit. Maybe so. But I have been on this website since 2005, since I said, wait, I can upload videos for free? I don't have to pay for hosting and bandwidth? This is incredible. And then, oh wait, I'm doing this thing that I did for fun and now I'm getting some money from it? This is incredible. Oh, I canceled all of my TV subscriptions, all of my subscriptions, and I get almost all of my entertainment from YouTube? This is incredible. I get to watch exactly what I want when it's incredible. So maybe I do go easy on them. Maybe I am a bit too forgiving, but I think Susan did an incredible job, and I think her legacy, she's leaving a really great legacy because YouTube is still, I think, the most important platform, most important website out there. So Susan, thank you for doing such a great job. Rest in peace, and my condolences to her family, and long live YouTube. I don't know if that's inappropriate to say, but I love YouTube. Thank you for doing such a great job, Susan. All right, let's jump to something lighter. I am going to go on a little bit of a rant, and this stems from a post on podcastindex.social, part of the Fediverse. Is that what it is? If you want to follow me on the Fediverse, by the way, what is it? Bandrew at pod.social? I cannot remember my username. Bandrew at pod.social, I think. Todd Cochran is the owner or the CEO of Blueberry, which is a podcast host, and he posted, "Where are the new podcast creators? I'll tell you one place they are not is at Podcast Movement. Is the location, cost, a weekday conference is keeping them away? This is supposed to be the creator conference, feels like the industry conference. Podcast Movement 24. No carpet at premier industry show is telling." I think that Todd is asking all of the right questions. Why aren't people at Podcast Movement 2024? Why does it feel like it is just an industry event as opposed to a creator, a podcaster event? Now, I can't speak for anybody other than myself, so I am just going to speak from my experience on why I have never attended a podcast convention. One, I've never been invited. That's a bit presumptuous. I wouldn't expect anybody to invite me to come. But the main reason, most of them are held in the middle of a week. I still work a day job. I work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I'm not going to take a bunch of PTO to attend one of these events. If there were some podcasting events that were closer to me, not in major cities that cost a bunch of money to go to, that were also during the weekend, perhaps I would attend, because there are some interesting topics discussed. But for hobbyists like myself, who don't focus on earning a bunch of money from their show, from their podcast, I'm not willing to take paid time off and then pay a bunch of additional money as well. So it's possible that because they hold these shows during the middle of the week, during a work week, that they're just not catering to the hobby podcasters, to the individual podcasters who still have a day job, who may have a little bit of income from their show, but they're not going 60 hours a week into this. They don't have corporate dollars behind them. They're just the indies. So they may not be catering to us, and that's fine. And if that is the case, they are catering to the corporate podcasters, there's your answer. You're hosting them in the middle of the week. So all us hobbyists, all of us indie podcasters, it's not for us. We have day jobs to go to. We have bills to pay. And these podcasts aren't paying those bills. Another thing it could be, I want to preface this by saying I did not go and pull a bunch of stats and analytics, but it seems like there's been a lot of discussion about podcasting and money in the last couple of years. From 2018 to 2021, 2022, it seemed like money was getting thrown around like it was nothing. And perhaps that's because interest rates were so low. But since then, it seems like a lot of that money has dried up. A lot of people have realized, that ROI, that return on investment, didn't materialize. The cost of money it's doubled? Maybe we shouldn't borrow that much and go all in on podcasting, because are we really going to earn a 7-8% ROI? Maybe not. So maybe if they are also catering to the corporate podcaster, there's fewer corporations investing a bunch of money in podcasting, so there's fewer new podcasters to go and attend these conferences. That's another option. But let's go ahead and look at the price, because that's something that is interesting to me. Because I am a hobbyist, there is stuff that I would enjoy about going to these conferences, networking, meeting people that I've spoken to in the past, learning new things. So the price for this, first the dates actually, the dates were August 19th through the 22nd, so 4 days. Let's assume we'll go for 3 nights. The flight alone would be $600 round trip, and that is on the low side. That is very low. Hotel, $300 a night. So let's assume 3 nights, the 19th, 20th, and 21st, so $900 there. Then the ticket for the event, between $500 and $800. So before we account for any kind of local transportation, before we account for any kind of food, before we account for taxes, fees, all the other things that these companies add on for flights, hotels, tickets, all of that, we are at $2,000. $2,000 to go to Podcast Movement 2024. Then it's held in the middle of a week. So you could either, if you don't get PTO, you would be foregoing payment for 3 days, add a few $100s more on top of that. Or if you do get PTO, do you really want to spend it to fly out to a convention and pay $2,000? Maybe. If this is what you want to do, totally, I get it. But if this is just something you do for fun, that's a big ask. That is a very big ask. But like I said, there is stuff that I did find interesting. I went through the courses or the tracks that they had available, and there are things that seemed interesting to me. How to start a video podcast, what you need to start a video podcast, using episode art to increase engagement. I'd love to see that. I love episode art. I do new episode art for every podcast episode. Why your show isn't growing. Dave Jackson, Dave, just send me a recording of this. I need this. I would love to see that. I want to know what you said. Expanding your podcast to YouTube. I want to know what they said. That's my bread and butter. Podcasting. I have been podcasting on YouTube since 2016. I want to know what they're talking about there. But then you get to the value proposition. For hobbyists, yes, this may be interesting information, but is that information worth the thousands of dollars that it costs to acquire it? Are there alternative ways to get that information? Are there videos? Are there blog posts? Are there podcasts discussing all of these topics that are available at no charge? Probably. Then the interesting question, could we spend that money more effectively? I think so. I think we could spend $2,000 much more effectively. With that budget, I could get a perfect, finalized podcast production setup. Microphone, interface, stand, maybe not a professional camera, but everything I need to get an incredible sounding podcast. Is that money better spent buying the gear and getting the last gear I'll ever need for my podcast? Is that a good way to spend it? Or is going to the conference a better way to spend it? That is the $1 million question, or I guess in this case, the couple $1,000 question. And that is why I haven't attended podcast conferences. I think those are the questions that a lot of hobby podcasters or independent podcasters ask themselves. What's the value proposition? Why am I going to go? What am I going to get out of this that justifies spending $2,000? Because that is a lot of money. We didn't even take into account the fact that people are struggling financially more than they have been over the last 5, 10 years. It has gotten significantly more difficult to live financially over the last decade, last 5 years, really. So people just don't have the disposable income to buy that, to spend $2,000 on a hobby, on something that's not going to return more than that back to them. If they invest $2,000, are they going to earn $2,500, $3,000, $4,000? I think that's why maybe attendance, I don't know if attendance was down. I'm just basing it off of this single post. And it got me thinking, well, why haven't I gone to one? Why aren't people going? Very good question. I don't think Ta's going to hear this, but there's my response on why I don't attend. I could spend $2,000 much more effectively, much more efficiently, and yeah. I'm not going to take PTO to go to a conference. All right, that is it for ranting. I'm going to do something. I had this set up and I was going to record the entire podcast this way, but then I said, no, I'm not going to do that. But I responded to Todd on, pod.social, my social media, pod.social. And then David Hooper came back and said, hey, you think it's a couple hundred, it's $2,000. And then I priced it out. And yeah, he's exactly right. Over $2,000. And then we got talking about how could you spend $2,000? And I pointed out for $2,000, I could buy like end game podcast setup, just to get the best sounding audio podcast ever. But then we got talking, or I guess that it's like we're having a conversation. It's just a couple posts. But then it just led to, I could get a great sounding podcast and a video podcast going for under $100. So let's do that. Let's get a video podcast going for under $100. And away we go with amazing looking video and amazing sounding audio. The camera that we are using is the inbuilt camera in my computer monitor. Not great. You could easily use your phone camera and get a better look than this, but I wanted it to look low quality and I didn't want to use a super expensive phone. So this is a built-in webcam. This could be equivalent to a laptop webcam and you would be getting very similar quality. I just have a single light over me, lighting me, so it's not too bright. The microphone I am using, tell me how good it sounds. Say, oh my gosh, Bandrew, this sounds better than everything else you use. It's the Samson Go mic. The Samson Go mic typically costs between $30 and $40. I bought this on sale for $20. So $20 for the mic, $20 for the mic stand. You could use a $10 pop filter. So $50 for audio, nothing extra for the camera. $50 for a video podcast, and I would be more than happy to watch or listen to this. One downside, I'm recording the camera using QuickTime on my Mac, and it does record at 24 FPS. I'm used to 29.97, so we're going full on cinematic. This is the most cinematic this podcast has ever or will ever be. That's what I am testing. Let us jump to what you had to say. First comment comes from Marine X. He says, great rationale. That's why I sunk costs in an Escoxo espresso machine 2 years ago and a niche zero grinder. I have saved the costs in the equipment in brewing from home, and now the coffee companies send me beans just to be featured during my EDC Cup series. Marine X, thank you very much for the comment, and thank you for sharing what you have done to live a more financially responsible life. Up front, it may be a lot more expensive. You may be dropping $500 on a coffee machine, but over a year, you're going to cover that cost really easily. And because you run a YouTube channel where coffee is featured, you found a way to not necessarily monetize it, but get free product. So you don't even have to buy the coffee. That is brilliant. So you've paid off the coffee machine by not going out and buying a $5 cup of coffee every day. And now you don't even have to pay for the beans. Win, win, win. If you are looking for everyday carry content, go check out Marine X. He's a real one. He's a good one. Love that guy. Absolute mad lad, and he calls out a lot of the BS. Great stuff there. All right, next we have a comment from Will Carter 7079. He says, "Your website isn't loading and I cannot get the latest episode in my podcatcher." Will, thank you very much for the comment. I wanted to include this because I wanted to point out I mess up. I am about as far from perfect as anybody could be. I published the podcast to video and then I thought, oh, I'm done. And I walked away. And then only later did I realize, oh, I still needed to publish the audio. I still needed to publish the blog posts on my website, none of which I have done. Still, 2 weeks later, I still haven't done that. And that is my bad. And I just wanted to bring this up because I got distracted. I got really focused on finishing this series of videos that I have been working on, and that took priority over publishing the audio podcast. I know it shouldn't have because I spent time making the audio podcast. People expect the audio podcast, so I should have published the audio podcast. But in order to remain sane, in order to not freak out and say, I have too much going on my plate, I'm distracted here, I'm distracted there, distracted here, blah, blah, I just did what I needed to do to get my job done. And my job at that time, at that moment, was finish this hecking series of videos. And I gotta tell you, now that I am done with that one series, it was like a weight got lifted off of my shoulders. In my production notebook, I should cross out that entire page. I think I now have 8 or 9 more modules to go in this educational series that I have been planning for a while. And yeah, if it took me that long for module 1, which was supposed to be a short video, may God have mercy on my soul and anybody who watches my channel. Thank you very much, Will. I appreciate you commenting that. And somebody else pointed this out as well. After I finish this podcast and everything, I will go back and I will publish the last episode as well. My bad for being 2 weeks late on that. Next, we have a comment from MEI Studio New York. I want to mention something. Pags, what an absolute... He's just a dude. What an absolute dude. He said, hey, what's your P.O. box? I was going to give this to you at B&H, but you weren't there, so give me your P.O. box. And he sent me this. I am holding up a water bottle, and it's etched with the Podcastage logo. Just what a dude. He didn't need to... That's just incredible. So, Pags, thank you so much for that. That is incredibly thoughtful, and I absolutely love it. You are a gentleman, a mensch. What is a mensch? I've heard that said, and I don't know what a mensch is. Hopefully I didn't just insult him. But Pag says, I have a theory. You're not hearing reflections from the desk and probably more off the monitors you have in front of you. Sound won't turn around on itself from a flat surface at an angle. It will reflect similarly to light and continue forward and bounce. So if you have screens that are parallel with your face hole, that's going to bounce back way more and sound hitting the desk may bounce off the desk, continue to the monitor, and then back to you. Easy way to test, just back up a couple feet and see if it changes drastically. My desk and computer monitor are both angled. My mic is usually less than a foot off of it, underboomed. I didn't notice many issues with it. Pags, thank you very much for the comment, and thank you for sharing your theory about what is causing the issues in my room. I always love hearing these new ideas or ideas that are new to me because that allows me to expand my understanding and get better at what I'm doing. So right now I am on a lav mic clipped to my hoodie, so it's not directly in the center of my chest. I am sat at my desk facing my monitor, and here is the sound with nothing on my desk, nothing covering the monitor, nothing like that. I will just go ahead and keep talking as I back up from my monitor. Now I would say I am about 4 feet away from my monitor. Do you have the same reflections? Does it sound better? What are your thoughts? this far away from the microphone or this far away from the desk as I almost fall over compared to this far away from the desk and monitor. I imagine there are more reflections here. Again, this is sat at the desk. And now I am about 2.5 feet away from the desk. Do you hear an improvement or do you hear a similar amount of reverb? Let me throw a big wool blanket on the desk in front of me. In the room, I hear a reduction in the reflections, but do you hear that in the recording? Again, this is with the desk uncovered, nothing absorbing anything on the desk. And now I have a big wool blanket covering the desk. But now let's put your theory to the test. First, here is the recording sat at the desk with nothing covering the desk and nothing covering the computer monitor. Now I have covered the computer monitor with the big wool blanket, and in the room, again, I do hear a reduction in the reflections. Is that making it through on the microphone on the recording? Let's hear the raw sample again. And now here's another sample sat at the desk with nothing covering the desk or the computer monitor, and let's hear what it sounds like covering the monitor again. And here's another sample sat at the desk with nothing on the desk, but the computer monitor covered. So my voice is not bouncing off the monitor, but it will still be bouncing off the desk. Do you hear an improvement or does it sound the same? Next, we have a comment from Danny Lightning Audio Reviews. He says, wait, how do you EQ match? Does ProQ do this for you or did you do this manually? You almost make it sound like it matched the EQ for you. I'm going to have to get out the manual and look this up. That would be super cool if you can do that. Danny, thank you very much for the comment and thank you for the question. I will give you a walkthrough and tutorial on how I do EQ matching in FabFilter Pro Q3, but to answer the overarching question, the plugin does all of the work. The plugin does the EQ matching. I do not manually do it. I am not that good. The way I do it is how I am doing it right now. I record into 2 microphones simultaneously. One, I like the sound of. Another, which I think sounds bad. And I am going to use the good sounding microphone to try to train the bad sounding microphone to sound better. Now that I have enough rambling and talking to train the plugins, let's go to a screen capture and I will walk you through it. All right, the first thing that I did was drop both recordings into my DAW. I lined them up as best as I can, and now I have 2 tracks. I have lav mic and LDC, or large diaphragm condenser. Let's go ahead and hear both of those. Testing, testing, testing. These are the 2 microphones that I am trying to train. Can I make this lav mic sound more like the TLM49? Because the TLM49 sounds so much better than a... The lav sounds terrible, as suspected. So on both tracks, I have a loudness meter, and on the lav mic track, I have a gain plugin as well. So I'm going to measure the loudness of both of them and make sure they're level matched before I do anything else. So let's go ahead and measure that and adjust the gain to account for the difference in level. Testing, testing, testing. These are the 2 microphones that I am trying to train. Okay, so the lav is minus 30 LUFS, while the LDC is minus 23.8, so I need to add 6.2 more dB of gain, I think, so plus 15.2. Let's go ahead and reset the loudness meters and verify again. Sounds so much better than a lav mic clipped to my collar. Hopefully it helps. Okay, I would say that's close enough. There's a bit of a discrepancy between them throughout, but overall, that's as good as it's going to get. Now we can close all of these plugins, and we are going to add FabFilter Pro Q3 to both tracks, so let's go ahead and do that now. Once we've done that, at the bottom of each plugin, we see this area that says Analyzer, Pre plus Post plus SC. If we hover over that, it gives us a few more options, and one of those options is EQ match. So I am going to click on that EQ match button on both plugins, and then I will play back the sample. Testing, testing, testing. These are the 2 microphones that I am trying to train. So while that was playing, you could see the EQ plugin actually learning the frequency response of that microphone. So once I have that done, I am going to click on this reference dropdown and scroll down to the bottom and say Save Input as a Reference Spectrum on the large diaphragm condenser. So let's do that. I will name this 2024-0425 TLM49. I'm going to do the same thing on the lav just for future reference sake if I ever need it. Once I've done that, I'm going to click on the reference dropdown and scroll down to 2024-0825 TLM49. Select that. And this shows me the corrective EQ that's necessary to get the microphone to match. This is just absolutely insane. We are doing, I don't know, about 100 different bands. If we go next, we can choose how many bands we actually want, up to 24. Let's hear what it sounds like using all the bands and turn the plugin off and on. Testing, testing, testing. These are the two microphones that I am trying to train. Can I make this lav mic sound more like the TLM49? Because the TLM49 sounds so much better than a lav mic clipped to my collar. Hopefully it helps. Testing, testing, testing. Frankly, that's crazy. It sounds so much better, but 24 bands, I don't know. I just on principle, I can't do that. I like sticking around 6. Let's hear the difference there. Testing, testing, testing. These are the two microphones that I am trying to train. Can I make this lav mic sound more like the TLM49? Because the TLM49 sounds so much better than a lav mic clipped to my collar. Hopefully it helps. Even with 6 bands, it's absolutely insane what a big improvement it is. Once we decide how many bands we want, we'll just leave it at 24. Heck it, why not? Once we hit finish, it locks in that EQ. And if you're not watching this, the EQ, it's one of the most insane things I have ever seen. It sounds better, but this is nothing that anybody would ever create. It is clear this was a computer that generated this. It's just funny, but it sounds incredible compared to the raw. Testing, testing. These are the two microphones that I am raw. Testing, testing, testing. These are the two microphones that I am with the plugin. Testing, testing, testing. These are the two microphones that I am trying to train. Can I make this lav mic sound more like the... That concludes the demo on how to EQ match using Pro Q3. There are free alternatives that are built into some DAWs. I know that Logic Pro has something called EQ Match. I haven't used that, so I don't know how effective it is. I also want to point out the way that I am EQ matching is far from perfect, especially because I am EQ matching two different kind of microphones in two very different positions. That is not a good way to EQ match. If you wanted to really easily EQ match, set up a large diaphragm condenser in front of a coaxial speaker, play a sine sweep, set up another large diaphragm, small diaphragm condenser, play the same sine sweep, EQ match. That will actually give you a proper result. It will show you the delta between the two frequency responses. The way that I am doing it, it would be very difficult to use that method for a lav and an LDC because the lavalier is in such a different place than a large diaphragm condenser in front of my mouth. So that is why I am using this imperfect method. But if you have two microphones and you just want to mimic one, throw them in front of a coax speaker, which has the woofer and the tweeter in line, and do that sine sweep. And you should be able to get a fairly accurate, maybe not fair, a similar sound out of the microphone. So that is how I would do it if I was actually trying to EQ match. Wanted to point that out, but To my ears, that was crazy. It made the lav mic sound so much better. One huge downside to what I am doing, you need to have both microphones. So if you're trying to, I want my SM7B to sound like a TLM49, and you don't have both mics, that's going to be a bit more difficult unless somebody has done that kind of the sign sweep from 20 to 20 to give you that graph on what to apply to your 7B to sound like the TLM49. Is that what would be called what is it called? Impulse response? Would that be an impulse response for a microphone? I don't know. But there you go. That is the conclusion of that. That's really all we had. Now we are jumping to value for value because this is a V for V podcast. What that means, I don't put this behind a paywall. I do not have advertisements on this show, thank God. I just put the show out there, and if you get any value out of it, I ask you return that. And it just helps keep the lights on, keep the bills paid, keep the hosting up, keep all of that going. We have a couple of donations this week, couple of contributions. Let's call them contributions, not donations, contributions. But first, I wanted to include this comment from David Kennerly. He says, "Patrons, thank you very much for subsidizing us freeloaders. Your generosity is greatly appreciated." And I just wanted to include that because it is awesome to see a comment thanking them, because without these contributions, the show probably would not still be ad-free. This was just an experiment to see how it goes because I don't like ads, but ads pay the bills. And people have been generous enough to contribute to the show to keep it ad-free and to keep the bills paid and lights on. So thank you for saying that, David, but thank you also to the following people. First up, we have 25 USD from Liberty Dude, and he says, "Was surprised this wasn't mentioned. Me being a person that stood against many YouTube TOS and policy decisions, I think it is necessary to point out policies are not people, and people are not policies. With former YouTube CEO Susan Wojicki passing away, a wife and mother of 3 children, I empathize with her family's loss. It has become way too easy in our society to demonize others simply because we disagree with their take on policies. I think this sad event can help serve us all to remember, in the end, we are all people. Each of us feel the world and how others react to us. May we focus on keeping our disagreements focused to the issues and not mindlessly attack the individual we are in conflict with. Rest in peace, Susan, and may the universe keep your family safe." Liberty, thank you very much for the 25 USD, but more importantly, thank you for that incredibly thoughtful message and that great reminder that we do need to differentiate people from policy, which can be difficult to do, which can also be easy to forget, especially once money gets involved. If a certain policy is going to impact your income, it's easy to forget that that person who's implementing that policy, they may not be being nefarious, but it's easy to assign that motive, to assign that justification, and then go after them a bit too hard and dehumanize them, treat them unfairly. But a lot of time, I think it's really important to remember, most people, I'm not going to say all people because that would be incorrect. Most people are doing what they believe to be right. So I think trying to view certain situations, certain policies from multiple angles, from different points of view can be really helpful. Trying to understand why somebody may believe they're justified in certain policies can be really helpful, and remembering that that person is actually a person. And it's okay to criticize the policy, to say, hey, that's stupid. I think that policy is dumb. Here is why I think it's dumb. But once you forget that, you start to see those really disgusting, mocking, taunting messages after somebody passes away. Somebody who likely had zero negative impact on your life. It was such a bummer to see that, because I think Susan did an incredible job with this company. I think YouTube is a net positive on society as a whole, and she was a huge part of that. So seeing the animus towards her was a huge bummer to see. And it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget. And I understand why people forget that. But I think some people are just looking for a reason to be angry and just lash out. But once money gets involved, once somebody's policy impacts bottom line, people forget that line very quickly. And you can understand that. You can also understand that point of view, why they do that, why they feel that way. You're taking food out of my mouth, essentially. So that's why I think your reminder here is so important. So thank you very much for that, Liberty. I really appreciate you. Next, we have 20 USD from Betty Kev 1. He says, thank you for the lav microphone tests. Your presentation of the results is great. Even better and motivating is that you are willing to do that test. Kev, thank you very much for the 20 USD and thank you for those kind words. I am always more than happy to do these tests because I have fun with them. Getting to learn something new, getting to push the boundaries of what I understand, and when I prove myself wrong, that just means that piece of information is burned into my brain. That is how I have always learned. Do something wrong, mess it up, make a fool of myself, and then once I correct it, it's in there. That's not going anywhere. That's how I got through school. I am going to do this over and over again. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to do this equation until I understand why I am messing it up. Just being told something is the answer does not click for me. It's not going to stick in there. Only once I understand why something is the answer is it going to stick in there. So I'm glad you found value in that, but it's also incredibly valuable for me. So thank you very much for saying that. Next, we have 50 euro from TechMed. Rainer Richter, goal! Deutschland. Oh, I don't know why I am the way that I am. Danke. I just wanted to save your life. It's not sufficient to wear a tinfoil hat. You do have to wrap tinfoil around your whole body. Otherwise, all those beams and intrusive thoughts will hit you unprotected. This would do significant damage to us, your audience, because you wouldn't be able to provide us with great content about lav mics. Raina, thank you so much for the 50 euro, and thank you for saving my life and protecting me. I was going to go get tinfoil and wrap up my whole body, but I don't have a new role, so I cannot do that. So I will have to suffer the intrusive thoughts, the alien rays, Project Bluebeam or whatever, HARP, all the conspiracy theories about the beams, the moonshots, all the stuff. Include all of that right here, and it is all penetrating my body, my soul, my mind. So next week, full-on conspiracy theories as my screen goes to sleep so I cannot see anything. Let's go ahead and try to log back in so I can read the last note. Thank you again, Raina. Really do appreciate you and your constant support. Lastly, we have 5 USD from SadLuigi98. He says, I don't know if you remember me, but a while back I begged you to review the LCT 840 because I wanted to get rid of my TLM 103 as I wasn't happy with it. But even after your review, I ended up selling the 103 and getting the Sony C80 instead, and I could not be happier with my decision. But thank you for taking your time to review the LCT 840. Great mic, but the Sony just worked with what I needed better than the TLM or Lewitt could. Appreciate you so much. Sad Luigi, thank you very much for the super thanks for the 5 USD. I really do appreciate it. I'm also really happy the videos helped you make a more informed decision. Even though I haven't reviewed the Sony C80, I'm glad you were able to determine what mic would be best for you. I'm going to try shutting off this light. Is this better? Is this better looking, or is this just weird? Looks like I'm on an alien ship. I'm really glad that you found the microphone that works best for you, and hopefully it continues to work well for you. The TLM 103 is much brighter. The LCT 840, bit more mid-forward, a lot smoother. I haven't tried the C80, but I imagine that is just crystal clear, because that's kind of what Sony's condenser microphone sound is. What is it? Not the LCT, the C800G, is that what it is? Their $10,000 microphone. The reason people love that is it is just the brightest mic out there. It's just hyper detailed. And it seems as though they have tried to capture that in a much more affordable and much smaller package. I did review the C100, which was a two-way microphone. It has two capsules, kind of like a two-way speaker. It has a tweeter and then a woofer, essentially. So one is going to pick up really high frequencies. The other is going to pick up lower frequencies. And if I remember, I think that went up to 30 kilohertz. So you even get some hypersonic. Would that be hypersonic sound? You're getting above 20 kilohertz, which is pretty interesting. But thank you very much for the 5 USD, and thank you for saying such nice things. I'm glad the videos have helped you, and I'm glad you were informed. That's going to wrap up for the super thanks for the value for value section. Next, we are jumping to the weekly Weckomendation Algowithm. I don't have it in here with me. I'm going to go grab it. My weekly Weckomendation Algowithm this week is the Lord of the Wings Extended Edition Trilogy. Because I finished that massive project, and instead of publishing one video, I turned it into 7 so that it's much more searchable. Maybe we'll discuss that on a later episode, but because I had that done, I have had a week off, which is not of my day job. I'm still doing that, and it just continues to get more and more stressful. I don't know how that is a thing. As I get more effective at my job, it should be easier, but it has just become more and more difficult and more stressful. But beside that, I had my evenings off. So the last week, I watched the extended editions of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And this has been on my bookshelf for a couple of years at this point. I didn't want to watch them until I finally read the actual trilogy books. And I did that this year or last year. And my gosh, are they so good? They were so much fun just sitting down and watching 12 hours of movies because, yeah, they're really long. But I lived in Middle Earth for that entire time. And maybe it's because I read the books. Maybe it's because I'm not as dumb as I was when I was in high school, but so much more made sense. In high school, I would be so confused by the different characters. Hey, isn't that the same Nope, not the same character, different people. But I enjoyed it a lot more than I did when I was in my teenage years. I went on opening night of one of these. It must have been Return of the King. And it was at midnight. And I ended up sleeping through my final the next day. And I thought I was going to flunk. But luckily, my teacher was kind enough to let me make that up. But because I went and saw Lord of the Rings, Return of the King opening night, I slept through my final and could have very easily flunked that year, which would have been very scary. That's my recommendation. If you have 12 hours to kill, maybe I should try to come up with something that doesn't take so much time. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the BSP. Thank you so much for coming with me into my blue light. Let me explain this blue light. I think I did in the past. I took a screenshot of the backyard in E.T., where he throws the baseball into his shed and the baseball gets thrown back out. I took a screenshot of it and used that to train my Philips Hue bulb of a new scene. This is the E.T. scene. So this is when I want to feel kind of spacey, when I want to feel mysterious and 1980s fog rolling Spielbergian. This is my Spielberg set. That's it. Thank you so much for coming by. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will be back. I will be talking at you, with you, about you. I love you. Bye-bye. Whoa, I'm booping the webcam. Boop.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.